cheer for your Sydney Swans.
Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods, a fan podcast of the Sydney Swans Football Club.
So to all you loyal Swans out there, you just can't get enough of the red and the white.
Fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods. G'day there, Signets and Swanlings. Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods. You're joined as always by the crew from Sydney. I'm Noddy and this is Jules.
Right, you lucky loyal Swans fans. Tonight we're going to have a chat about our very solid win over the Crows as we head into the finals for 2024. But before then, remember, if you like what you hear, then please give us a like and a follow. All right, Noddy, let's kick things off with a quick game recap.
Last Saturday night, in front of 36,500 fans at the SCG, our Sydney Swans defeated the Adelaide Crows by 31 points, with a final score of 18-13-121 to 13-12-90. All right, Jules, straight over to you. What did you make of that?
Well, it was nice to finish off the home and away season with a win. So that leaves us with 17 wins and only 6 losses for the season. And the Minor Premiership, which is really cool.
That's awesome. That's really cool. What is it? The 10th in our history, including South. But since we were the Swans, 1996, 2014, 2016, and now this year, 2024. A couple of bogey years in there, though, I will say, off the bat.
Yes, that's right. Look, hopefully we can create some new history as minor premiers this year.
Dogs also finishing in 7th. I'm having a bit of post-traumatic stress disorder here.
Let's not go there. This is a new year for us, different team.
That's right.
Come on, guys, we can do it. Yeah.
In terms of the game, it sort of wasn't over convincing, but we did what we had to do.
That's right. It was pretty lackluster, to be fair.
Yeah.
From our point of view, we were really just hoping to get out of that game unscathed, lock in the minor premiership, have no injuries, no suspensions, and we managed to tick those things off.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously Heaney was that laid out, resting the superstar, and then we had Rampy, Chad and Errol pretty much put on ice. Yes. Icy wall. What's the saying?
Rampy what it is. Totally put on ice. He sat out the whole last quarter. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
there was all precautions taken, more or less, which was good to see.
Yeah, wasn't it Clarko who said Rampy's our most important player? There's a bit of a shout out from the angry man himself. But yeah, I think like since Mills has gone back and Rampy's come back in, I think our D's looking pretty solid. Obviously, Francis came in for T-Mac, and we're going to be talking about the selection squeeze. That's a pretty key talking point in footy circles, Swan circles. But yeah, look, in terms of the game itself, obviously we won a first quarter, which was nice. But geez, we got off to a cracker, and then we let them back in.
Yeah, we really let them back in, didn't we? It was an absolute goal fest in the first quarter. 13 goals in total kicked. We kicked the first 6 to their 1, and then they kicked the last 5. Kicked 5 out of the last 6, and we only went in with a very narrow lead of 7 points. So we certainly let them back in that first quarter.
Yeah, was it the first quarter where pretty much everyone was getting a goal? I mean, Melly got a goal, Rampy got a goal. Was the first quarter, wasn't it? Yeah,
Oprah giveaways in the first quarter. Everybody was getting in on the action, and look, it was a pretty low pressure, sort of really open style, kind of exciting in a way, I suppose, because it was high scoring, but it didn't have the vibe of a finals type atmosphere, which a lot of the games this round did. They were kind of pre-finals, sort of. Giving the side, I guess, a really good kind of hit out. Ours felt a little bit different to that. So,
yeah, it just felt like lacking a lot of pressure. I think we were talking before we started recording. It felt like both teams didn't really want to be out there. That the Crows, I think, were ready for their Mad Monday, and we were just hoping to get through unscathed. But Yeah, look, I mean, obviously it's nice. I think it was out to 37 points at half time, maybe even a little bit more. We pushed out a little bit more, but then ended up they won the last quarter. But obviously we did enough there to cruise past them, and I guess the positive things were around that sort of points from turnover. We did some nice transition there. We could call out a few players. Obviously Goulden, Blakey had a great game, Parks had a great game, but and some of these other players that have been off that sort of came back and were looking sharp. But yeah, I don't know. There were a few things there where even though we were cruising, I think we were beaten again, and they're not. It's not worrying, but it's a little bit like there's something. It just doesn't sit quite right. How did you feel there?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, Adelaide are 15th. And they really had genuinely nothing to play for. They couldn't change ladder positions. And, whilst, we had the minor premiership somewhat locked in, we still had plenty to play for. And we were given the opportunity, because Adelaide, weren't great, to basically kind of do, whatever it is that we chose to do with the ball. They gave us a lot of rope to play our slingshot style footy, which was totally back. A stack of points from turnover, 80 for the game for us. So those numbers, were well back to that, to that style of game that we love to play off half back. And we took on the corridor a lot more than what we have in recent weeks. It looked like our confidence in terms of our ball movement was back. So there was a lot of good things, but as you mentioned, there were a couple of still relatively alarming aspects of the game that we should probably pay a little bit of attention to as we move on and kind of look forward to how we're going to play in September.
I just think that, and I think we're going to talk on clearances and contested possession again, because obviously that was a talking point out of the Bombers game, but like we were talking. I heard you and Chris did the episode the review last week, and saying that Grundy's probably, it's time for Grundy to have a little bit of an extended break. Obviously, everyone's got the week off this weekend coming, but it just looked like he really needed a little bit more of a rest, and I think he looked a little bit tired again this game. Do you reckon that's a fair comment? I mean, not to single him out, but he was soundly beaten again.
Yeah, he was soundly beaten again. And just in terms of his overall contribution around the ground, he only took one mark, which is a bit, that's, as a big man, that's a little bit disappointing. I mean, just as a point of comparison, Aaron Francis took 6 and Hayden McLean took 7, and for Brodie to only take 1, that was a pretty alarming stat. And just his ball usage just tends to kind of hack kicks. And look, goes for territory, which I understand, but I don't think he fully makes use of the amazing ball users that he's got around him, and perhaps taking an extra half a second to just analyse the situation and perhaps give a quick handball off rather than just kind of dump a ball into space. Perhaps, we would be better for that. So I think you're right. He probably did need a rest. Some aspects of his game I feel like he improved upon. But still not the same guy he was 6 weeks ago for sure.
Yeah, and just on your point about hacking forward for territory, obviously, if he's got that role, that's his role. But it's not as if we come up against taller teams who are better interceptors, and they would just pick us apart. And that was pretty much what was going on in that form slump period, right, where we were just forced to kick long and we're just being picked off because our tools weren't really. They were barely bringing it to ground. They certainly weren't contested marking. But, if we come up against a tougher team, then that's really just not going to, I don't think that's going to fly. And hopefully we can sort it out before we, get any deeper into these final series. But, yeah, how were we in the contest? Because as you said, I think our kicking was really nice. Our transition ball was nice. Scores from turnover was amazing. We were looking like that style of footy in the beginning of the year. And Chad was looking very sharp, very nice to see. But obviously as the game wore on, and we pretty much put we sort of essentially gave up in the fourth, and it became pretty much just sort of game of kick mark. But until that point, throughout the second and third, contested possessions. That's you guys talking last week. That's kind of what you need to go deep in finals, and wasn't really there again, was it?
Well beaten again. Just 118 for us to their 133, so a minus 15 differential there. And again, against a side that's has really struggled this year, and doesn't have an overly strong midfield either. That's a pretty sort of glaring number. We lost the hit-outs. We were minus 12 in the hit-outs, and we were minus 4 in the clearances. We particularly got smashed in the stoppage clearances, 20 to 26. So the centre clearances, we actually just nudged them. But again, against the quality of opposition, I would expect those numbers to be a little higher. And the contested possession, contested ball numbers are just, for a side like us, 1 week out from finals, it is a little concerning. We relied really on our classy use, which was well and truly evident. We were much better with ball in hand in terms of our disposal efficiency and particularly efficiency inside 50. So those were the good things. And our kick marking game was well and truly back. Just going back to the fact that Adelaide gave us rope to do whatever it is that we chose to do. We certainly, there was a game of kick to kick really in the end for us. We had 122 marks for the match and only 7 of those were contested. So we were just going sideways and backwards and, just sort of cutting all over the ground. So
sort of a AFL fantasy heaven type game where there's just high possessions. I mean, plus 39 disposals, plus 59 kicks, plus 51 marks, plus 45 in uncontested possessions. So, look, it was, as we're saying, it wasn't really much of a contest. And while they were beating us in some of these areas that, against better teams, we really need to tighten up. It was one-way traffic, really. Even in that first quarter, they did kick back, and obviously we pushed out in the second. But you just sort of had that feeling. It was a weird night, wasn't it? It was sort of not a foregone conclusion, but it just had that just a bit of a strange vibe to it, the game.
A bit lackluster, I think. We led the whole match, so we never really felt like we were going to lose. I certainly didn't feel like that. And then certainly once sort of half-time came along, it looked like well and truly with that 37-point lead that we were the better side by a mile. But interestingly, we lost the inside 50 count as well. So they had opportunities. They just butchered them. And again, we lost the tackle count as well. Now, appreciate that we probably had the ball in hand more, but again, really low numbers, like 48 tackles for the game. That's not going to get the job done in finals.
Yeah. I'm just looking at some of their numbers here. So they scored like 11% goals to inside 50, the success rate. First quarter they were 35%, second quarter 11%, third quarter 18%, and fourth 31%, even though they beat us in the fourth, as you're mentioning. And we were 54, 43, 33, 13 as we petered out there. But yeah, you're right. It's just sort of one of those ones. I mean, we only had a total of 6 more scoring shots than them in total, and I don't know. Obviously, it's sort of we locked in the minor premiership, so that's really awesome. But I don't know. I mean, to go from that form slump to having three wins in a row just before finals, if you didn't look too closely, you'd say, oh, that's a pretty good form line going in. But look, I don't know. It's sort of mixed feelings at the moment. But look, it's fantastic effort, like over a very long season, the longest ever, right? So, and it's nothing to scoff at a minor premiership. You have to work hard and you have to stay in the fight, and we've done that. And I don't know. It's exciting because there's a lot coming up ahead of us. But before all that, obviously there are a fair few moments throughout the game that were pretty cool. And obviously I called out Rampy and Melly's goals earlier. But
awesome.
Anything stick out in your mind?
Yeah, well, I always liken defenders kicking goals to number 11s scoring runs in the cricket. It's just one of those pure joy for a fan scenarios, and to see the Great Dane, the Great Dane, from just outside 50, put through that gorgeous goal. And Melican, he kicked only his second career goal out of 81 games. So I was out of my seat, jumping up and down for those defenders, getting it through the big stick. So absolutely love to see it. The first quarter actually probably had the most amount of highlights in it, to be fair. There was also that magnificent front-on smother from Caden Cleary inside 50, so leading to the Parker goal. That was really impressive. And we noticed it last week. He really does set the tone early with, fantastic pressure, and a young, enthusiastic guy coming in with everything to play for. Obviously he'd love to have a spot coming into finals. It just really does set the tone and send a message to the other players just around, what he's willing to do and what the rest of the team, should be doing to contribute. So that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's been fantastic, and the ability to throw him in the middle, and he had a few sneaky clearances here and there, because that's obviously where he's played as a junior through the mids. But yeah, he's going to be stiff. Obviously, we're going to have to go with experience and these bigger names coming back in, but he really is one to look forward to. And I was so worried for him, because the amount of head rub, just after that smother, Parker just pointed at him and went straight back to him. And then I think it was Hayden McLean and then Amadi. Everyone was just whacking his head, and you could see he was just like, I've got to get out of here, otherwise I'm going to get a concussion from my teammates. But man, that was so good. And Rory Laird, geez, he copped it from Kingy, didn't he, after that whole Rochelle thing with the teeth. Yeah. And then, obviously Laird throwing Rochelle under the bus. But, yeah, look, Cleary, another fantastic game. And, yeah, I mean, obviously Wicks got dropped, was that after the Port game? And then obviously, with that ban in the VFL.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if Papley and some of these other players weren't looking to come back in, I mean, you would say based on his form, he is a lock. But
he's done nothing wrong, that's for sure. He's certainly taken his opportunities.
Yep. So look, there were a bunch of other highlights. I think Lizard was looking hot, like just running off the halfback, and kicked a couple of snags himself. And yeah, look, I think Matty Roberts was looking sharp again. I mean, it's unbelievable. I think everyone's starting to really appreciate, just his ball use. He's an elite kicker. Obviously, he's still young. He's got to work on, AFL level speed, and especially in transition. But he's just so smart. We had a chat to him a couple of last week or so. But just a really exciting young defender, and he's part of that. I mean, he's part of that critical back 6-7, I think. But yeah, look, other than that, I think Rowie was pretty good in the guts. Obviously, Parker, I mean, it's so crazy to think, was it like a month ago, 5 weeks ago, he was the sub or something? Was that how far back it was?
Unbelievable. And everybody was sort of thinking he wasn't going to get back into the team. They thought they'd played his last game for Sydney. So there you go, how things can turn around. And he's, once again, 3 goals, a stack of score involvements, and just, pressure, a lot of contested possessions, exactly what we need from an experienced head.
Yep, that's right, and just that ability to, kick those goals when we need to. And I mean, it sort of bugged me more than it should have, because he's had such an accurate year. But Will Hayward, just missing those 2 set shots, for some reason, really got under my skin this game. Even though it was one of those games where it's like, we're probably not under that much pressure here. But I was just like, oh, Wilbur, come on,
he's been so accurate as well.
He has.
It's just. You'd almost,
they haven't been able to use the wayward Hayward this year, right?
I know. Well, it came out, didn't it? Came out big time on Saturday.
Dwayne bloody Russell, he can't help himself.
No, they were quick. They were quick on it. But yeah, no, Will was down this game for sure. Not his best, but that's okay. Time for him to practice his set shots over the next week and a bit.
But I mean, he's just while we're on Grundy, he previously he's another one where I mean, surely we're saying like, basically, the ankle in the Brisbane game, whatever game he did his knee in, he's just been playing banged up footy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd think, if obviously if he's fit, if he's good to go, he was putting his hand up and horses picking him, every day of the week because he's one of his favourites and for good reason. But yeah, it's one of these things where you look back and go, oh, maybe just one other game for a rest might have been smart, but you never know. Obviously, you want some continuity, and we talked about that already.
Trust horses' decision making. He's been playing this game for a long time. So, but yeah, right. He and Grundy, we certainly had marked down for a rest. But we're not paid the big bucks to make those decisions, so we'll let the coaches figure that one out.
Definitely. Look, in terms of the Bob medal, I think we can just roll into that. Obviously, Bob is our equivalent of the Bob Skilton medal, where we give 3, 2, 1 for best on ground, and I think it was pretty clear, especially where the game was needing to be won. But who do we give 3 points to, Jules?
For a really massive first half, particularly Errol Goulden took the 3 votes. 24 disposals, 10 contested possessions, 8 clearances, the most out of anyone in the game. Interestingly, 7 of those were at stoppage, which is where we were down. So he really did play a pretty important role there. 3 tackles, 2 goals. Was he 2 goals? I'm pretty
2
sure.
Goals.
Yeah. Yep. So 2 goals, 1 assist, and 8 score involvement. So he was busy. 19 of his disposals, by the way, were in the first half. So that shows you when the game was there to be won, Errol was there.
Yep. 25 pressure acts, second for the Swans after Rowie on 35. I mean, he's always had that sort of running, that two-way running, that helping out defensively. But yeah, I think, and it was nice to kind of see some of that beautiful Swans footy that we're capable of. And I don't know, I love it when him and Chad embrace. I don't know, they got like a bit of a thing going on, obviously.
Yeah.
It just looks good, doesn't it? It looks fun.
It was nice to see. One of my favourite moments of the game was actually when Matty Nix was interviewed at halftime, and somebody politely suggested that maybe someone should start paying some attention to Goulden. And he clarified, well, in fact, we do have somebody on Goulden, but perhaps given that no one's noticing, it's not working. And that was pretty true. He apparently had a tag on him. So there you go.
You couldn't tell. I mean, look, there's been games this year where he's been well and truly nullified, but yeah, this wasn't one of them. And I think, who did they say it was Saligo was running with him for a while, or
he was a younger fella, a guy who'd only played about 6 matches. Can't remember his name.
Bond? Maybe Hugh Bond?
Bond. I think it was Bond.
Yes.
Yeah, Bond. Yeah.
That's a pretty tough gig. I mean, the types of players that have done numbers on Goulden are very experienced, and obviously Steele Sidebottom comes to mind. There was another one in there I'm forgetting, but yeah, look, he was good, wasn't he? And let's face it, we love it when Errol's up and about and he's kicking goals because we get to sing that amazing song. And yeah, it was good to see. I mean, he's one of the players that obviously sat out probably halfway through the fourth quarter, but yeah, I think there's nothing really. I think, even if Horse wanted to rest Goulden, I think you get the feeling that Errol's like, no, mate, I'm playing.
Wasn't he the guy that wanted to play 100% of the match minutes only a few weeks ago?
Yeah, that's right. His time on ground is pretty crazy, isn't it?
Next level for a guy that works that hard. Yeah.
Lots of running in the preseason. But and how do we go with 2 points? Who are we going with here?
Yeah, the 2 points, pretty easy. It went to Nick Blakey, the Lizard. He was just outstanding, seriously outstanding. 81% efficiency for his 32 disposals, 2 beautiful goals, 7 score involvements, and wait for it, 673 metres gained. Ooh!
Oh my God.
The lizard was everywhere. 6 rebound 50s as well. One of my favorite lines from the commentary, and there's usually not many because I find the commentary pretty hard to listen to most games, but plays tall and kills them small, Nick Blakey. Love it. He was awesome.
Oh, that
Confidence.
sounds like a Dwayne Russellism.
I think
Was
that
it
was
him?
a Dwayne
Loves it.
special. That
He
one.
preps
Yeah.
these lines, I'll tell you. He preps them.
Well, I'm keeping that one. That's
Yeah, that wasn't bad.
That
That's a
sums
good
it
one.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. He usually is most bounces. Is he still leading the comp for bounces?
Yeah, I think he is.
He'd
the
be up there.
bounce
He'd
comp.
be up there. He had a few bounces this game
No,
as well, didn't he?
he went on a tear. He certainly cashed in big time. You know, it's in some ways, some people may view his game as perhaps just as good as Goulden's, if not better. But I think, look, he just cashed in when it was there, when it was there to be had, and he certainly made the most of it. And he's just so gorgeous with his beautiful hair, swinging off the half-back line. Yeah,
You can tell he's
Loved it.
he's a real team favourite as well. Like he's got a really cool sense of humour, and he's sort of that sort of laid back larrikin. But yeah, it's good. Like obviously when he's a bit like Papley, I think. You know, when fit, like he's a bit of a barometer, right? So when players like this are going well, generally speaking, we're doing good things, and yeah, it's just really good to see a flying lizard streaking off the halfback. And geez, we forget that he kind of started as a full forward, right? And then moved to the wing, and then
until he goes to kick it in front of goal, and then you're reminded exactly of his gorgeous boot. Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable. And obviously 1 point is always tricky, and, you know, we might tinker with the point system next season, but while we're still running with 1 point, we've committed to one player, and we'll talk about some of the honourable mentions afterwards, but who we go with 1 point?
Yeah, it's always tricky, the 1 point, but we've gone with Chad Warner, back from injury, which was, you know, awesome to get another game under his belt leading into September. Lower disposal numbers to a degree, just the 22, but at 77% efficiency, 11 contested possessions though, so really busy when the ball was there to be won. 6 clearances, all in the centre, interestingly. 491 metres gained, 1 goal, 3 goal assists, 9 score involvements, which is pretty huge. And I don't know, 100 broken tackles and don't argues from the middle, something like that.
That's right. We were saying like he's just got to get his numbers up to make sure he beats Harley Reid. But yeah, he looked good, didn't he? He looked back. He was looking fit,
confident. He just looked like he couldn't be beaten, which is a lovely sign for us.
Well, especially after, you know, that form slump where we're going, what's going on here? And, you know, to the point where everyone's, you know, he's having contract talks and this and that. And
Distracted.
I don't know, maybe it was just that sort of physical exhaustion that, you know, was also being spoken about. But, yeah, obviously he had that calf and did he have 1 week off? He didn't play.
Yeah, just the one,
game?
and they said he was 50-50. Like probably could have played. They would have played him if it had been a more important game. But yeah, he was much better for the rest. And just as mentioned, just that confidence being back. He just, you know, got his mojo, willing to take it on. And yeah, I don't know what happened to him a few weeks ago. He was certainly one of many who sort of lost themselves a bit. But fantastic to see him back flying.
I mean, if that's the difference between a week off and playing through, I mean, obviously we were speaking about Heaney and McCartan have been rested, but geez, I mean, a few more guys might have. Yeah, anyway, I mean, they all have a week off, so maybe that's what they're banking on. But yeah, Chad just looked good, didn't he? And as I said, like he was looking hungry as well. Like kick 1 goal 1, but feel like you know he was like he was just in one of those Chad moods, I think. And obviously, you know, the game was, it is what it is, you know, lackluster and everything we've been speaking about, but just really, really good to see him looking hungry again. And in terms of some of those honourable mentions, we've sort of mentioned a few guys throughout, but who do you reckon we can roll with here in terms of who just missed out on the point?
Few that we could choose from. I'm going to start with James Rowie. 21 disposals at 90% efficiency, 10 contested possessions, 4 clearances, 9 tackles the most
Beautiful.
by a mile. Yeah, so
Yep.
he's fourth in the comp for tackles this year.
Yep.
So that's pretty impressive.
Mm.
One goal as well, our 7
Yeah.
scoring involvements. So yeah, very impressive outing from Rowie.
Yeah, good to see him working those tackle numbers again. I mean, there's a patch of time where he was getting low single digits, and we were thinking, hang on a second, this isn't Rowie. This is someone who's got similar haircut. But yeah, like no, he's really continued to shine, and obviously he had a few weeks out, and he's come back, and yeah, he's a real integral part of that midfield unit, isn't he? He applies a lot of pressure, and yeah, I reckon Millsy. I mean, obviously, it's a lot of Swans fans are talking about it. Well, I reckon this was Millsy's best game this year. Obviously, he's played a variety of roles. He's been getting in, trying to get fit in the like playing through games, but he is looking good where we're playing him, which is primarily down back, but wherever we need him, further up the ground, whenever we need him. But
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't have the stats, but he had a pretty solid game, right?
Yeah, Mad Monday Mills, as he's been nicknamed, has continued his comeback at the right time of year. 27 disposals, 85% efficiency, 7 contested possessions, 7 intercepts. He got 10 last week, so those numbers are really looking good. Very, very solid down back. A couple of tackles, got in on some score involvements as well. No, he was awesome. Definitely back, well and truly.
Yeah. And just the sight of him holding his arms up and barking orders and between him and Rampy, and it's just like I think I mentioned it earlier, but it just feels good. It feels very solid. Obviously, different teams put forward different challenges, but just knowing you've got that kind of structure back there, and obviously with Tommy McCartan to come back in and Melican playing such a solid role, with the ever working hard Cunningham, right? But yeah, it's just looking very solid down back. Florent, Roberts, obviously, Campbell when he needs to go down, and then obviously Fox can play a role when he's on, but. Yeah, I guess, obviously Francis, we'll talk about the selection squeeze, but yeah.
He had some tough moments, for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those things again, isn't it? But it just, You can see he's vibing with the team, though. Like he seems like he's got a decent rapport with a lot of the players. And that's
and his effort's there. His effort is there. It's just the execution, I think. He just doesn't. He lacks the polish for sure, but everybody sleeps a little easier at night knowing that Callum Mills is down back for us. I think for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We spoke about Robbo earlier. I think he had after Lizard most disposals. He's just looking great. Just continues to look great.
Under the
Very
radar,
nice left kick.
He really is. Just his last 6 weeks have been awesome, and I reckon he's been in our sort of top 5 players for most of those weeks, particularly the ones where we weren't doing so well. He really stood up, and I mean he's a lock in that team now. He's not going anywhere. Yeah,
agree. Just think about that. Like when our headline players are in a form slump, a 21-year-old, sub 20 game player is our most consistent player. I mean, it's fantastic, isn't it? Like it's
it is.
Yeah. So good on him.
He's got some
I
real
agree.
ticker.
He's an absolute lock. Yeah, definitely. Well, that's pretty much it for the review part. But I mean, there's a lot of things we could talk about, but I think we've done a good job picking out the nuts and bolts of that game. And I guess we just come back to, we have to acknowledge what a fantastic season it's been in our 150th year so far, to win the Minor Premiership, to be where we are now after all these, hurdles and all the media bashing, and it's still there, isn't it? Geez, they just don't give us much love, do they? But I mean, what a fantastic achievement.
It seriously is. I mean, just reflecting back to God, when did the season start? March, was it?
Yeah,
feels like an eternity ago.
Yeah.
Not many people had us, finishing, within finals, let alone we're, minor premiers. We've absolutely just had a storming year. It's been, there's certainly been a couple of lows, but a lot of highs. The fact that we can pinpoint a couple of the lows on one hand tells us everything we need to know, that it's been a magnificent season so far. We've put ourselves in a position where we can launch at the right time of year, and looking ahead, it kind of looks like we should have almost a full squad, hopefully, to choose from, which is pretty cool.
Yep. I mean, this is the talking point now, obviously. So the top 8 has been locked away, and there were a lot of exciting last-minute moments there that, sort of rounded out the top 8, depending on where you come from. Carlton and Fremantle there, sliding doors moment. But in terms of us, minor prems, we're on top, and we're playing the Giants in the first qualifying final at the SCG on Sunday the 7th of September, first bounce at 3:20, and we're going to do a preview. I think the plan is to do a preview episode with another Swans fan podcast. I think Chris had a chat with them recently. It's Stephen and Odette from the Rookie in Red and White. Really cool podcast, really huge Swans fans and super endearing, those guys. So we can, like Jules, you and me, we're free to get out into the ether, whatever we're feeling and thinking about the game ahead. But we will cover again in depth. I think we'll probably talk more about the Giants players in that episode. But before we hit record tonight, I think we were talking mostly about the selection squeeze, and that's been a talking point for pretty much ever since some of these key players came out, and when they were looking likely to come back in. So I think we can probably take a few minutes here, or however long we need, to just sort of to talk about the idea of selection squeezes. Every club faces them every year, especially if you're humming. But what are we looking at? Obviously, who's out, who's likely to come back in, and who's probably going to be unfortunate.
I mean, we can probably start with the obvious back ins. Heaney, it sounded like his injury, in inverted commas, was a stiff ankle, which apparently he's been managing for quite some time. So I think there's no doubt that he'll be coming back in. Certainly McCartan, he was simply just managed, not injured. So he will almost certainly be coming back in. And then I guess we've got do we want to maybe call them 50-50 chances at this point of Papley and McInerney to return. So if that's the case, there's four starters, I guess, that we need to make room for in that first final if they're all fit.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously the structure that we've had all year, we've had the 3 talls, right? So with Doss playing the ruck forward role, the backup ruck role, but then McDonald and Marty being the key talls. Obviously with McDonald going back for a section of those games when we were undermanned through injury. But, I mean, I'll say it. I think a lot of Swans fans are thinking it and feeling it, and certainly media pundits are too. But Party's he's played a role, but I guess the question is, has he played enough of a role to keep his spot or keep the structure? I know that's a tough thing. I'm not suggesting he needs to be dropped. But if we look at all these if these 50-50 guys come in and there's further squeeze elsewhere on some other players we'll talk about, I guess these are the kind of selection dilemmas that are being faced. So I guess just over to you, Jules. Amati, what are you thinking?
So Joel Amati has had one fantastic game this year. A couple of serviceable games, and then quite a few games where he's had little to no impact. Now, the issue, I think, with Amati, and if you compare him to the other talls in Logan McDonald and Hayden McLean, is his versatility isn't there. He doesn't provide that second role. Logan, can be that swingman. Of course, McLean in the ruck. but Amati doesn't have that overall ground presence. He doesn't seem to work as hard from a running perspective in terms up and down the ground to provide that marking option. And he drops just so many what should be bread and butter marks. Not only that, I saw him a number of times on the weekend try and pass the ball off when he should just go back and kick the goal. He's obviously really down on confidence. So if we're in a scenario where we need to drop one of these tools, or perhaps it's a wet weather game or something like that against the Giants, I'm certainly in the camp of perhaps we need to look at Amati's inclusion in the team or lack thereof.
And obviously that decision becomes a bit clearer if the 50-50 of Papley and Juzzy are moved from 50-50 to they're ready to go. And then you look at we've already said Robbo's a lock. I reckon Campbell has done more than enough the past month to show that he's got the versatility and the hunger to stay in the team. And then you've got players like Adams and Fox who are versatile and experienced. So obviously, with one tall out, you lose that ability to match it with taller teams like the Dogs. But, we were saying like the Giants aren't really known for their height. They've got, they do have talls, but they've got the one key ruck, Briggs. Keefe, I think, has been playing a role. He's pretty big, so 200 plus centimetres. But, yeah, look, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because obviously horses run with the three tall structure all year. And, as you're saying, Amati has had some really high highs and some, just some weeks where he's just been playing the role. And has it been good enough? And we chatted to him, and Chris chatted to him on the podcast, and he's obviously, he's had a pretty good year, I think, in whole. But this is what everyone's talking about in the media when they say selection squeeze and dilemma, because it's a tough call to make. And we were talking beforehand as well, like Logan McDonald. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you consider Luke Parker as well, he's a bloody good contested mark, and as a third marking option in the forward 50, he's not bad. So, and in fact, I think he's taken the most amount of marks inside forward 50 in the last couple of weeks. So, if you think about that balance, perhaps with him playing there as well, it does give us that option.
Yeah, and as you've said, and we know Heaney can obviously roll forward. You've got the luxury of Mills to move him into the guts. Adam Fox actually was started as a forward this year before he was being forced to throw back through our defensive injuries that we had throughout the year, and he's sort of in that, I guess, hybrid role. He's sort of in that Hayward Heaney mould of pressure for, but let's not forget that Foxy can take an absolute specky. But yeah, look, I don't know. Like, I think it's a very tough call to make, obviously, and we're not saying one way or the other. But these are the conversations that will be already, this is what's being discussed, and obviously the outs there, Francis and Cleary. For the reasons we've already touched on tonight. And then is it Amati, especially if Papley and Juzzy are back in the mix. But I personally would have Fox in over Adams. I like what Adams has done and added to the team. I do get very, very nervous when he kicks the ball. I don't know about you, but his usage can be a bit worrisome sometimes.
His usage is terrible, and he's got the yips in front of goal too. And Fox is actually a pretty good kicker goal, so I'm with you on that.
You certainly wouldn't. I mean, it's such a tough call, and as I was saying, like Logan being cut for the 22 grand final for Reed, who came in underdone, and there's going to be all these sorts of thoughts running around the head. Obviously, we're not there yet. We've got a lot of footy to play before then, but you take every game like it's the last one, and I think it's going to be very tough. And so, Jules, just in terms of those 50-50s we were talking about, Papley and Juzzy, do you know who's further along? Like, who's closer to coming back in?
So according to John Longmire, and he was reluctant, it seemed, to give too much information away, but it seemed to me like McInerney has strung together more time on the training track and has been perhaps running for a longer period of time than Papley has been, by the sounds of things. So I got the idea that perhaps McInerney was slightly further ahead in terms of his recovery than Papley. But they're keeping a lot close to their chest, of course. And a lot can happen in a week and a half, right? So, but I mean, neither of them are certainties, that's for sure. And it sounded to me like Papley, that was very much, we're going to have to just wait and see, and we've got no idea at this point in time. That was sort of what I picked up from it.
Well, I mean, if neither of them are ready, then I guess we're rolling with Amadi's spot obviously would be safe, you would think, and then Cleary you'd have to say would hold, and then it just it comes down to who you're going to have on the sub bench, I think, with some of these players we're talking about, but. Yeah, it's going to be a hard one, and I mean, ultimately you just want to have your fittest and your best team out there. But it's as you're saying, it's probably a good thing we don't, we're not the ones making the call. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to watch. Just in general, how are you feeling about having to play the Giants? And I mean, it was sort of an interesting one that it's ended up with the two Sydney teams playing each other. But give us a few thoughts there, Jules.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to me like GWS were pretty keen to play us, actually. They rested three key players right before the bounce on their game on Sunday. It seemed to me like they were thinking that it was better for them to finish in fourth than to risk finishing third, which is probably fair enough, and stay at home and kind of get that, the same benefit really of that the top two sides get of, sleeping in their own beds and, not having to travel too far, just down the road to the SCG. So, it seems like it's been set up perfectly. We certainly have a very big, pretty intense rivalry with our little brothers. We have a pretty poor finals record against them. We're 0-3. So they've certainly gotten us when it's counted, but we've beaten them twice this year. So, I think it's going to be a very exciting game. And no doubt there'll be no love lost on the field. And hopefully the red and white army can drown out the orange tsunami.
Very good, very good. I like that. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm also a little bit nervous, and for the reasons you've said. I think I was watching one of the shows, but I think it was that teams finishing in fourth since 2000. There've been no premiers, and there's been maybe 3 or 4 straight set type. I don't know the exact stats, but like the further down obviously you go, the harder it is to win the flag. But yeah, for the reasons you've said, I think they would have been absolutely licking their lips to end up in fourth. And just in terms of the slot, obviously it's a Saturday afternoon, which I don't think it's. I think people in Sydney are pretty happy with that. Yeah, but missed opportunity to. Yeah, you go.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, look, I'm happy with that slot. Saturday afternoon, twilight at the SCG. We get to showcase our beautiful sunset over the members' pavilion, which is a sight to behold. But it seemed to me that Tom Harley was pretty keen for us to play on the Friday night to allow extra recovery time if perhaps we lose that game. and not to mention, of course, it's prime time ratings slot, but that was given to the Victorian based side. So I guess from my perspective, I'm not too upset, but my thinking is that there aren't too many benefits that you get from finishing as minor premiers, and I think choosing your final slot should be one of them.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And I think wasn't it Bevo who was complaining about when the Dogs were playing on the Friday night because they didn't want to have a clash with their women's slot, and you're thinking, okay, Bevo, hang on, mate. We know in the past you've moved mountains from 7th before, but settled down, and it's just irony, I guess. I mean, and also a little bit of that sort of Vic bias shining through. We've got to play Victorian teams on the prime time because, heaven forbids, other Victorian fans don't want to watch two Sydney teams go at it, regardless of how good the game ends up being. But yeah, there's a little bit of something going on there, but. Yeah, in terms of a fan experience, I think, time slot wise, day probably works and works well for families as well to get out there. But we're going to the game, Jules, and we're certainly looking forward to it. But I'm very nervous,
awesome.
as I said. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, every reason to be nervous, but it's a huge opportunity for us. So.
Yeah, massive. We know what's on the line, and we've just got to bring it. And hopefully, we've got our best team, and everyone rocks up. And I've a lot of belief in the group, and we've had a stellar year so far. So hopefully we can roll from here. But as I said, we'll do the preview potty, an extended preview potty with Stephen and Odette from the Rookie in Red and White, and so look out for that one. But in terms of today's app, I think that's probably, we've certainly covered off the key points. But before we go, the All-Australian squad has been announced. And we had 4 players, was it, Jules?
Yes, Isaac Heaney, Errol Gordon, Chad Warner and Nick Blakey.
Yep, that's awesome. I think, look, if it were up to me, they would be absolute immediate locks in the final team. But what are you thinking? Do you think that all 4 get through or only a few?
All 4 get through without a shadow of a doubt. Yes.
Yeah.
Well and truly. And also a shout out to Matt Roberts, who's in contention for the Rising Star as well. He's not one of the favourites, but he is in our eyes.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't know what more you have to do in terms of consistency, but I guess he doesn't have that, he's not that key forward or he's not that, midfielder, but geez, he's played a role and we've spoken about him at length. But yeah, I think probably at different parts of the season, we might have had a few more players in there. I know Grundy was really crushing it at a point in time, and who else was probably in the mix? I think, I don't know. I think probably Juzzy was on track for a pretty solid season.
Yeah, Juzzy on the wing, I think potentially was something that could have been considered. James Rowbottom, I would have thought would have been close as well.
Yeah. I think in that 22 under 22, I think it ended up being Errol and Logan nominated, and Errol obviously made the final team. But yeah, look, obviously these are separate to the main target, the big prize, but it's still nice to get some of those accolades coming back their way. And we haven't really spoken about Heaney being rested and how that might affect his Brownlow votes, but we had been previously discussing that. Yeah, I think there's too many good players in our team, and they're stealing votes off each other.
Exactly right. Look, we certainly did the AFL a favour by avoiding any awkward moments by resting Heaney for the last match, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting to watch. It'd be really interesting to see how deep he goes until that unfortunate incident. But yeah, look, as I said, that's in parallel to the big fish, but exciting nonetheless. But anything else to mention, or you want to shout out before we sign off for the night?
Just a shout out to our coach, John Longmire, who is always the first person that everybody goes after when things go wrong. But he's 14 years at the helm as senior coach, and we've only missed finals twice, which is a pretty sensational effort. And he has us beautifully poised at the moment for another tilt. So, yeah, just a nice shout out and a big thanks to Coach Horse John Longmire.
Well said, Jules. Well said. You're right. He can get slammed, with the perceived lack of plan B. But there's been a fair few games, especially breaking out of that form slump, where he's certainly tried B, C, D, and E to get us over the line, and it's worked. And I think that's sort of
Absolutely.
Yeah, you gotta have faith and trust and not blind, but I think when you look at his track record, it just sort of speaks for itself, doesn't it? But we are one of the lucky clubs. Yeah, we are stable. We're stable.
Yes, yep. No, it could be worse. You could be a Bombers fan, for sure. Amongst others.
Oh, they just are a hapless bunch, aren't they?
Starved. They are.
Oh my
yes.
goodness.
Yep. No,
All right.
it's a pretty good life being a Swans fan. Yep.
That's right. And fingers crossed for the rest of the season, obviously. But well, that brings us to the end of this episode, and thanks everyone for listening through to the end. If you made it this far, it must mean we did something good.
Love it if you could give us a like and a follow on all your favourite socials. Otherwise, make sure to keep an eye out for more content during the week and, of course, on game day itself.
We look forward to you joining us next time. But until then, up the Bloods.
Up the Bloods
and
can you
Swannies.
Swannies. Woo!